My people, the new leader of the Catholic Church, the first ever American to wear the white robes, Pope Leo XIV, has come face to face with his past. And not just any past, no, but his black past. His Haitian ancestors, his Creole grandmother, a lineage that includes people who were enslaved and others who did the enslaving. The world's newest pope, who has been hailed as a reformer, a bridge builder, a man of the people, was recently handed a family tree that most people would never believe. A tree that includes free black people in 1800s Louisiana. A tree with deep roots in Haiti. A tree that just might complicate everything we thought we knew about race, religion, and power. And here's the twist. He didn't even know. The revelation was made possible by Dr. Henry Louis Gates Jr., the renowned historian and host of the PBS show Finding Your Roots, who sat down with the Pope to present him the details of his lineage. And let me tell you, it was profound. In today's breakdown, we're diving deep into the jaw-dropping revelations about the Pope's black ancestry, what it means for him, for the church, and what ancestry forces us to confront the uncomfortable truths about identity, about race, and about power. Because this isn't just a story about a pope. It's about history and identity and the truth that we try to bury to protect the lies we've learned to live with. We're going to break it down, but first, thank you to all of our new subscribers and members. And if you haven't joined us yet, please hit subscribe and tap the bell so you never miss a new release from us. All right, now, let's get into it. So before the headlines, before the family tree, let's talk about the man at the center of it all. Pope Leo XIV, born Robert Francis Prevost, was raised on the south side of Chicago in a working-class family of devout Catholics. A quiet, disciplined kid who would one day become a priest, a missionary in Peru, a bishop, a cardinal, and now, the Pope. When he was elected in May 2025, after the death of Pope Francis, he made history as the first American and first North American Pope. And for many, that alone was groundbreaking. A man from the U.S., a country where Catholicism is often overshadowed by other faith traditions, suddenly at the helm of a global church. But here's what made it even more interesting. Pope Leo was never the media darling. Right? He wasn't the flashiest cardinal or the most outspoken reformer. He was known as a worker, a fixer, a man who could navigate tough theological terrain and make the trains run on time. Since taking office, he's focused on transparency, healing divisions within the church, and promoting a more inclusive message, especially around poverty, migration, and forgiveness. But what no one expected was that this same man, this global religious figure, was carrying a history that even he may not have fully understood. The moment happened quietly. No press conference, no public statement, just a quiet sit down at the Vatican with Dr. Henry Louis Gates Jr., host of the PBS series Finding Your Roots, and a document that would shake the very foundation of everything Pope Leo XIV thought he knew about himself. In a Facebook post, Gates wrote, "On Saturday, my wife, the historian Dr. Mariel Iglesias Ucet, and I were granted the profound honor of a private audience with His Holiness Pope Leo XIV to present him with a copy of his family tree. We had worked with an incredible team of researchers to trace his lineage back to his 12th great-grandparents, people who lived nearly 500 years ago. Walking him through that tree, it was one of the most meaningful and deeply moving moments of our lives." I'm sure it was. So what exactly did they find? His maternal grandfather, born in Haiti. His maternal grandmother, a Creole woman from New Orleans, descended from generations of mixed-race families once known as free people of color. But it doesn't stop there. Some of his ancestors were listed in historical records as mulatto, quadroon, and colored, racial designations used in the brutal caste system of colonial America to separate black from white, to measure just how much of your blood made you less than. Others in his lineage, formerly enslaved. And still others, slaveholders, including one woman, Marie Jean, who was born into slavery, but later became a landowner and went on to own enslaved people herself. Let that sink in, my people. The Pope's bloodline carries both the chains and the keys. And here's a twist. For generations, this part of the family story was either never known or just not acknowledged. Even though census records listed his grandparents as Black or mixed race, even though the trail leads straight back to Haiti and Creole Louisiana, in the Pope's family, they simply didn't identify that way. His brother was actually quoted as saying, "We never talked about being people of color. Just wasn't our experience growing up." And that right there, that's not just a personal story. That's an American story. Because this kind of history, this mix of bloodlines, silence, and reinvention, it isn't rare. It's just rarely told. So when Pope Leo looked at that family tree spanning 12, 13, even 14 generations, he wasn't just learning names. He was confronting a legacy, one shaped by survival, shaped by silence, and by a world still uncomfortable with the truth about race and identity. And here's the part that stings. This wasn't some mystery lost to time. The signs were there, in census records, birth certificates, and family lines that pointed straight to Haiti and Louisiana. And yet, the story was never told. Not in Pope Leo's home, not in his church, not even among his siblings. Gotta ask why. Well, because in America, racial identity has never been just about blood. It's about perception. It's about proximity. It's about survival. His family lived as white, moved through the world as white, benefited from being seen as white. And in a country where blackness has historically meant exclusion, danger, or even disadvantage, choosing not to claim that part of your lineage was its own form of protection. What does it mean when your experience, your safety, your success relies on either not acknowledging or denying the people who came before you? This isn't unique to Pope Leo. Millions of Americans have family trees shaped by the same kind of silence. The passing grandmother, the Creole lineage nobody talked about, the stories that lived in whispers or got erased altogether. But when the silence gets broken, especially in a moment as global and symbolic as this, it truly forces a reckoning, not just with ancestry, but with identity, with what it means to be American, what it means to belong. And with how institutions like the Catholic Church, steeped in centuries of whiteness and power, process the full, messy, beautiful truth of who their leaders really are. Because this story isn't just about uncovering Black roots. It's about confronting why those roots were buried in the first place. So why does it matter? Why should we care that the Pope has Haitian and Creole ancestry? Why should it matter that his lineage includes both the enslaved and the enslavers? Because the Catholic Church, one of the oldest, most powerful institutions in the world, has a long, complicated history with race. Let's not forget, the church didn't just coexist with slavery. It blessed colonizers. It baptized plantation owners while ignoring the chains on the wrists of the people in their fields. It built wealth and legacy on stolen labor, stolen land, and silence. So when the leader of that church, the literal face of the institution, discovers that he's descended from people it once dehumanized, that's not just poetic. That's prophetic. It forces the church to reckon with its own hypocrisy, right? To confront the question, can a system that's rooted in whiteness truly embrace a lineage that exposes its lies? But my people, this isn't just about the Vatican, right? This is about how we all relate to history. The stories we've been told, the histories we've been told. It's about what happens when the stories we inherit just don't match the stories that we try and tell, or the truth. It's about how power often depends on erasure and how truth can disrupt that power. Because let's be real, if Pope Leo had grown up identifying as Black or Haitian, would he have made it to the Vatican? Would he have been embraced by the same global institution that for centuries has centered whiteness, both in its imagery and its leadership? That's the uncomfortable question. Because this revelation doesn't just challenge the Pope's identity, it challenges the Church's entire idea of who belongs in power and who does not. So yes, this story is about ancestry, but more than that, it's about accountability, not just for one man, but for an institution, for a religion, for a world. Oh, and by the way, on a side note, just when you thought this story couldn't get more surreal, there's this. Thanks to Dr. Gates and his research team, we now know that Pope Leo is distantly related to some familiar names. We're talking Madonna, Justin Bieber, Angelina Jolie, even Hillary Clinton. Yep. Turns out the Pope shares distant ancestors with pop stars, prime ministers, and Hollywood royalty. Most of these connections trace back through French, Canadian, and New Orleans bloodlines, descendants of early European settlers, African slaves, and indigenous women whose stories never made the textbooks. And while it's easy to laugh or raise an eyebrow at the idea of the Pope and Justin Bieber being cousins 14 times removed, there's a deeper point here. We're more connected than we think. The lines we draw between races, classes, cultures, they're a lot blurrier than we've been taught. So what starts as a fun headline becomes a reminder. Blood doesn't lie, but history often can. So where do we go from here, my people? We now know that the Pope, one of the most powerful religious figures in the world, has a Black family tree, Haitian roots, Creole blood, a legacy of people who lived on both sides of the whip. And yet, he rose through the ranks of an institution that's long centered whiteness, while not knowing or fully reckoning with that part of who he is. Now, this isn't about blaming the Pope. It's about asking a much bigger question. What stories are we still too afraid to tell about who we are and where we come from? Because the truth is, many of us come from complicated lineages, right? From enslaved people and those who enslaved, from those who suffered and those who survived by staying silent. And that's not failure, that's history. But when institutions, whether religious, political, or personal, build themselves on denial, they cut off the very roots that could help them grow. So maybe this moment is more than just a headline, right? Maybe it's a mirror for the church, a mirror for America, and for anyone who's ever felt the need to shrink, pass, or hide just to belong. Because healing doesn't come from pretending. It comes from confronting, from reclaiming the stories we were never supposed to inherit. So now I turn it over to you, my people. What does this story say to you? Does ancestry shape identity, even when we don't claim it? And how do we begin to tell the whole truth when we've spent so long living in half of it? Drop your thoughts below and let's have a real conversation about this. And if this episode resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and drop a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. That's it for today's show. I'm Sandra Babu-Boateng. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, take care. Hey you! Thanks so much for watching this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, don't forget to subscribe and join the family. Also, visit Face2FaceAfrica.com for your daily news and updates on what's going on within the global Black community so you can stay informed.